Yeah, so you have to keep track of where you're going. All right, Joe, you're ready to go.
All set.
Okay, Joe Roll,
Here.
John Wiener,
Here.
George Mika,
Here.
Rick Portola,
Here.
Pat Kenny. Pat, can you hear us? Can you unmute?
I think it's easier to explain to people from a computer, and also you can press the space bar. Space bar.
Oh. Pat, can you hear us? I think that's active on YouTube.
And you can ask.
Okay, are we ready for approval of agenda?
You want to get him on first, or do you want to wait?
Pat, can you hear us?
Let's just wait, Joe. I'm trying to get Pat to get online to compare us.
Okay.
Maybe like write his name on a piece of paper? I mean, so we can see it? Yeah, copy message. That's what I'm trying to look for.
That's right, yeah. Right there. Yep, and so type something in there. And you should be able to see that.
I didn't hear. Is George Mika there yet?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, okay. Morning, George.
Good morning, Joe. Do you know his phone number? You could call him on his cell.
I don't know what his phone number is in the way.
Mark's going old school.
Now he's leaving. That's what I'm gonna do.
Tell him to possibly call back in.
Let's see, how do we get this? Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, camera. Actually, the camera, yeah, up on top. Yep.
This one?
The arrow, down below, the arrow, that's for that. Okay, there you go. So there you can see ours. So.
That's Joe on there now.
Pat, can you hear us? Pat, can you hear us? Pat? Pat?
Oh,
They're not bad.
Pat, can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Okay.
And
Okay,
finger is recording.
All right. Now we can go.
Okay, sorry.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I do
Okay,
have one
motion to approve the agenda. Do we have a second?
question. I didn't come to last month's meeting and you said that I was here to second the voice and I say, no, I'm not here. It was in here. Not a big deal.
I did.
So we got a motion and a second, right?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Okay, now approval of zoning and land committee meeting minutes. Item number 3.
I'll approve the minutes from September 1st.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve the minutes. Do we have any discussion? Okay, motion to approve.
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, motion carried. Minutes are approved. Public comments, 3 minutes. Anyone there for public comments? Or anyone online for public comments? Do we have any public comments? Oh, I guess not. Well, let's go to POWTS maintenance fee. Item number 5.
Item number 5 is coming forward today. After listening to the last county board meeting, there were a number of supervisors in favor of more of a user fee-based way to generate revenue. A large part of what the zoning department does is dealing with POUT systems, which is your septic tanks, your holding tanks, mount systems, things like that. What we're looking at doing or asking eventually for a motion here is to establish an annual fee for any improved properties in National County not served by a public sewer system. Across the state, it's a pretty common practice for counties to charge basically a user fee or a maintenance fee, if you will, that offsets the cost of the zoning department for tracking systems, for enforcement costs, software, various things that we have to spend money on as a county. This way, it's kind of geared more back towards the people who are actually benefiting from or utilizing that portion of our service. Across the state, counties are charging anywhere from $5 to as high as $16 per property per year as far as the POUT maintenance fee. And that gets assessed on the tax roll. It will be incorporated into the property taxes as a POUT maintenance fee or a POUT user fee. So we're looking at utilizing this as a way to offset the zoning budget in part, in addition to the revenue that we're currently bringing in from our user fees.
So you're looking at $50 a year?
No, I'd be looking at, so we have approximately, I should say, we just have over 4,000 properties identified in the county that are improved properties. We'll have to fine tune that. I'd be looking at somewhere around $7 or $8 a property to offset, some of the zoning expense.
That would be everybody. Everybody that's got a permit.
Any improved property, correct. So it would exclude people that are on city sewer, like the city of Ashland, or Woodland Sanitary, or in Butternut that are on this, that are excluded.
Yeah, so anybody that isn't in a sanitary district.
Correct.
You're talking $8?
I'd like.
What does that acronym stand for? POWTS? I don't understand the whole thing.
Treatment system.
What's that?
You hear me, Joe?
Yeah, that acronym.
Privately owned waste treatment system.
Okay. All right. So that refers to treatment systems then.
Right.
Okay, I got it.
Have you figured out about what it would bring in?
At $8 a property, it brings in about $32,000.
Is that what your raise is? Well, I'd have to go to the full county board.
It will, basically, I'm looking for a motion now for this, but then obviously when it gets to the full county board, it'll be the committee support. We're going to offset our operating.
That would be every year then? It would just go on the tax
Yeah,
every year?
just go on, yep.
Would it be a line item or would it would
Be a
be
line
a,
item,
it
correct.
would be a line item? Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, we faltered on our wheel tax. I'm baffled that 2 committees endorsed that, and none of them, members of the committee would bring it on the floor. And I sure, why would I? You know, they were the ones that, this is why a committee talks about things and understands and discusses it. And they're the ones that are supposed to understand and know why they did this. I think I'd have voted for it. I wouldn't have had a problem with it. It's pretty easy, $250,000. And, why those committees didn't bring it on the floor, I don't have a clue. But maybe we take another whack at it, maybe at the budget meeting. I don't know, what do you think? Can we do that at the budget meeting again?
Because the wheel tax was not brought up for discussion, it can be brought back to the county board at any time.
Perfect. So.
No, I got a question. This maintenance fee, this is in addition to the property taxes then?
Yes, Bill.
Okay,
We have to, so part of the job for zoning, we're required by the state to track and monitor maintenance events for everybody, for everybody's septic systems, and their holding tanks or, mound systems, conventional systems. We have an inherent expense there, between the software, the time out in the field, following up on complaints. We cover a lot of areas. Pulling permits, Amy's forever pulling sanitary permits for real estate transactions. We have a number of agents that call asking, so these are all things that will help be offset by this fee.
okay, what is the dollar amount that you're recommending for this fee then?
I would like a motion to adopt an $8 maintenance fee per each improved parcel. Not
Okay,
sure.
Now, I suppose the tribe isn't even considered in there unless it's a private owned system.
Right.
Right. Well, we're looking at ways of making a little bucks. $30,000 sounds like pretty cheap at $8 a piece. So I'll make a motion that we send this to the county board.
I'll second it.
okay, motion made and seconded to send this maintenance fee proposal to the county board. All in favor?
Joe, this is Pat Kenny. I got a question.
Okay,
The agenda item title is discussion on POWTS sanitary fee. The title does not include possible action. Is the agenda titled in a way that action is appropriate?
Yeah, number 5, post-maintenance fee. It doesn't indicate there would be no motion on it or discussion. It would be available, in my opinion, for a motion to move forward. Would you like to weigh in on that, Clark?
Yeah, Pat, this is Clark. So when we look at like the next item on the agenda, permits issue revenue account, they're asking for a motion to approve that. I think given that it basically is just, it didn't say discussion, it just said basically the agenda said maintenance fees. I think that's open to interpretation to say there could be action taken on that.
Well, the title says discussion on POWTS sanitary fee. My understanding is that if an agenda item includes possible action, the title should say discussion and possible action. If it only says discussion, my understanding from prior experience has been that it's limited to discussion.
These are referring to the
oh,
relevant.
I see the argument now. Yeah, discussion or move it forward. All it says on the agenda here is POWTS maintenance fee.
I've never seen an action item on any of our land conservation. Mary Jo always puts action item, but I've never seen action item on the zoning and that. And if you want an action item from now on, if you want it called action, we can do that. But like Clark says, the permits issued revenue, there's no action there. We automatically make a motion, second it to pass it. When Brittany comes in, there's no action item on there. We pass that, or we accept it and make a motion and second it, and we accept that. And that's, I think, what this is doing is sending it to the county board. If you would like Josh to put on there when he sends it to the county board, because I don't know, I suppose it needs to be a resolution. Does it need to be a resolution or an ordinance?
I would think so.
Yeah, it will be a resolution or an ordinance before
Yeah.
the county board.
So
It'll be on November 10th.
all we're doing is sending it to the county board, and then the discussion will be there.
That's correct.
So this motion is just to move it on to the general session of the county board then.
That's correct. You're basically recommending it to be put on the county board agenda for a decision.
Okay,
You see, here's the issue that we get when we, could do it a little better. At the last meeting, and I suggested this, and I don't know why we don't do that, but everybody starts to talk and get involved. We talked for 45 minutes on the wheel tax. It was never brought on the floor. That should have never been discussed without being brought on the floor. But we discussed it and everybody got all upset over it, or, you know, we had our pros and cons. So when it came onto the floor, when nobody would put the motion in, that should have been done before the discussion ever started. That was an ordinance. And you should never be talking about an ordinance until it's on the floor. So we can backtrack, we can do what we want, but this is on the floor, and we will send it to the full board, and it will come on the floor. Maybe Clark can spend a minute with Dick and tell him, you don't discuss anything until it's on the floor, you know. So it'll go to the county board and it'll come on the floor. Well, it better.
This is Pat again. Coming back to the title on this item, it says discussion. It doesn't say impossible action. If the public were to read this title, their interpretation, I think rightly so, would be that it would be discussion only and that action is not being considered. Moving it to the full county board is an action. And we have a public comment period, and I think there are times when the public reads titles, at least based on my prior experience, that if it's only discussion, they say, well, I don't need to weigh in now because they're only talking about it. But if the title includes possible action, then they know that action is being considered. And if they want to weigh in, they need to do that. And so on this one, you know, just going forward, if there's a chance that staff is looking for a recommendation, my preference would be that we include and possible action on there. Because the agenda item at the bottom says no motion needed. And yet we're now making a motion when the document put forward to the public says no motion needed and it's only discussion. And so moving it to the full board is an action. And, you know, the wheel tax was mentioned with 2 committees. And those are both cases where those committees were asked to bring things to the full board, which is different than saying that they endorsed that. They were just asked to bring it to the full board, and then there was a different interpretation at the full board versus just simply bringing it to the full board. And the same thing applies here. If this is sent to the full board, then what's happening is it is cast as this committee is recommending it, as opposed to bringing it to the board for discussion and possible action. And
that's
that leads
a
to
good point.
And it's a misinterpretation. That article in the Daily Press was a misinterpretation of, in my opinion, of what happened at the Finance Committee and my understanding of what happened at the Highway. And so I think it is important we title the agendas with the possible action, and that if it is a case that it's being asked to go to the full board for consideration, that those motions then just say a particular committee has recommended sending this to the full board for discussion and possible action, and make sure that it's phrased in a way that doesn't say the committee recommends this if it's only being asked to send to the full board for discussion and possible action.
So what was the motion that you're discussing here? Amy, do you remember?
I can give it to you.
Well, they were recommending the $8 fee
And to move the full.
and sending it to the board.
Okay, all right.
Sending it to the board for discussion, right? Pat?
Well, the way this was discussed, it sounds like this committee is being asked to recommend it, to take an action to recommend it and send it to the full board. And it's not titled to take action, And if this
Yeah.
committee sends it with a recommendation of charging this fee, that's different than recommending that this item be sent to the board for discussion and possible action. So I'd like to be very clear on which of the two we're being asked to consider.
Well, we haven't recommended it yet.
Pat, this is Josh. So I understand you're looking at the agenda item routing slip. We publish the agenda. So the agenda clearly states public maintenance fee. I understand your concern. The agenda item routing slip is actually a separate issue from the agenda. So as the agenda was published, it is simply the public maintenance fee, which would allow action to be taken. And I will apologize for the.
It is that title discussion on POWTS sanitary fee that's the pertinent issue here in terms of what the committee can and can't do with
But
this item.
we're not regulated by the routing slip. That's just extra information we put out. We're regulated by the published agenda. The published agenda states public maintenance fee. There's two different items. I can understand your confusion, and for that I apologize.
No, that discussion item titled is the relevant piece here because it tells the public what the intent is to do with this item.
Well, we'll have Jennifer up next. When we do tax titles and that, there's no action item on there. We make motions, we take land with that simple understanding that a motion, a second, and the committee, we don't even have to go to the full board when we take land because that's by state law. I mean, it's pretty, pretty simple, straightforward stuff, and we do it all the time. And they don't write action item there. These people that when we take land, we always invite them in. We always invite them to come in and talk to us, even make a deal with us. I mean, we're pretty lenient on that in comparison to other counties. So I still don't think that it's an issue that we send that to the full county board. You got to remember, we put a budget or a line item out 2 years ago and the people turned it down, okay? And what they did is they turned down the fact that we can't pay our bills. We got to do something about it. This is pretty simple to me. I mean, the maintenance fee, we could have a lot of different fees from the different departments. We don't do that. We'd rather not. But when the people don't want to support our budget and that, we got to do other things. That's all there is to it.
My concern is whether we're informing the public of our intent on these items and if we're being consistent with what the committee sees, what the public sees, and thus the opportunity to weigh in on this before decisions are made.
Well, I don't, when we had the wheel tax, I don't think we had any comments, did we? We never had no comments, so I did hear it out in the public a little bit about, well, what's that gonna look like? I had no clue what it was gonna look like until I got to the meeting. So I still think we need to, pass this. We made a motion and seconded it, and I think, I still think it stands. Call question. Well, you don't have to call a question, because then you got to vote on it. What do you think, Joe? You gonna call that question? Or do you want more discussion on it?
Now, are we going to recommend that this should go to the county board for discussion? Or are we supporting this? I'd like to know which one it is here.
You're voting to basically recommend this to the county board for approval, an $8 fee for sanitation, services. That's what you're voting on. You're basically voting to put it in front of the county board to approve. And you can turn it down if you don't want to approve it. So that would be your vote.
Well, I think Pat Kenny has a pretty good argument there. to forward it for discussion. And like he says, we didn't get any public comments on this.
We didn't on the wheel tax either.
It was, so the item was listed on the agenda as Couch maintenance fee. Item number 4 is public comment, so nobody contacted us with public comments about item number 5 on the agenda as Couch maintenance fee. It's how it's public.
So you've got a cover sheet which says discussion and no motion needed. And there's really, in this agenda packet, there isn't information that says what the county is intending to do with this item. So if you're wondering why the public hasn't weighed in, one possibility is they haven't been given the information that's being shared at this meeting. Even a couple of lines in here that included that staff was recommending an $8 fee would have informed the public of that. And frankly, it would have informed me of that prior to the meeting. Now, one way this could be handled at the moment is if we chose not to vote on this, the administrator could work with the county board chair, write an agenda item to put on the county board agenda, and in that agenda item, note that this was discussed at the land and zoning meeting, but no motions was made in regard of this. Just so as an understanding for the full board that this was on the agenda, and now the administrator and chair are working to bring this to the full board for consideration.
I'm gonna stand on my motion. I'm not gonna rescind it.
You have a motion and a second on the floor, Joe. You should call for a vote on it. If they decide they don't want to vote on it, you could entertain another motion. But you have to decide on this vote because you have a motion and a second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. I guess we're gonna have to vote on it then. All in favor?
Oh, you can ask for a roll call vote if you want.
Yeah, let's do a roll call vote on it.
Joe Rose?
I'd be in favor of recommending it for discussion rather than having the board rather than having the zoning committee supported at this point. That
Joe,
would be mine.
Joe, the motion that you're voting on is to approve an $8 fee and recommend it to the county board for approval. That's your recommendation. And if you don't like that if you don't like that vote, then just vote no.
Yeah,
And
I'm gonna have to vote no on that one.
Recommendation, but voting yes means you're approving the $8 fee and recommending it to the county board for approval.
Okay, I'm gonna vote no. John Wayner?
I'm gonna vote no too.
Okay. George Mecca?
Yes.
Yes. Rick Corpola?
Yes.
Pat Kinney?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay. So we have 2 noes, 2 yeses, and an abstention. Looks like we got almost a tie here then.
Joe, I hate to step on your feet, Pat, but you need to have a reason why you're abstaining. That's a board policy unless you're connected to the DNR or you got somebody working for the county. Our policy is that you put a yes or a no vote in there.
My reason for abstaining is the agenda item on the cover sheet says no motion needed and the title says discussion. It does not include possible action. My feeling is, based on past experiences, it's not appropriate for us to vote on the motion that was made.
Well, what do you think, Clark? You know, we've made that policy because we could have 7 people abstaining from certain motions on the floor and we just can't have that. I mean, you know, if I know Matt McKenzie, he'll abstain once in a while because he is a DNR warden, and sometimes we're dealing with the wolves or the DNR, and he's allowed to abstain from that, but the rest, I'm not. I'm not allowed to abstain. In fact, it's so serious that if I'm not here and it's a tied vote, they can come to my workplace and get me. That's, you know, we don't see it, but that's as serious as it is to actually vote on things. So if you want to stand on it, that's fine. Then it dies of the lack of a majority.
Well, George, in my 8 years on the city council, including 5 as council president, we never took action on an item where the title was discussion only. We only took action when it was discussion and possible action, and the city attorney had weighed in on that a number of times. So I think we have to follow Robert's Rules of Orders, and we should not be taking action on items where the agenda item title says discussion without possible action. If the county has done some things in the past that don't follow those rules, that doesn't mean that I need to vote today on an item where I think the motion is not consistent with the title of the item. So I am going to abstain on that vote.
Then it dies of the lack of a majority.
And
Well, it
if
looks,
Joe, if we're following Robert's Rules of Order, a motion only passes if the majority votes for it. A tie, if its vote is a tie, it dies.
well, I guess that's where it stands right now. We'll probably have to bring this up at a future meeting then.
Well, it's dead. What will probably happen is I'll probably sponsor it myself. Any committee can bring something to the full county board, or any individual supervisor can bring an issue to the board with a resolution. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have Josh write up a resolution on my behalf, and I'll present it as a line item at full county board. So good enough. Let's go on to the
And
next.
that's certainly appropriate, and include and possible action in there on the fee. And if you have a recommended fee in mind, it would be good to include that. That would be perfectly fine. And I think a paragraph to clarify how it got to the board so they understand it, that would be fully appropriate. And I would support doing that if that's what you choose to do.
I think we're on number 6, Joel.
Okay, let's go on to number 6 then. Permits issued revenue account.
For September, our total deposits were $13,600. Fantastic month, and I think, well, with September, we have generated more revenue than the year previous.
That's not bad. I gotta tell you. Pretty good.
Mr. Chair, can I speak?
Yes,
I got a question. Where does this money go that's collected then? Does it go to Ashen County, or where does all this money return to?
So the majority of what comes in stays here. If there's sanitary fees, the majority of what comes in stays here. If there's sanitary fees, then we have to pay money back to the state, a portion of that, for the groundwater. That's a requirement.
But otherwise, the money goes to Ashen County here
Correct.
Yeah, it goes
So
in the
the-
general fund.
in a general fund, so. All right, thank you.
any other discussion on that?
I make most, well, let's see, we can't do that. It's not an action item. Well, I don't know. We just always approve them. But can we approve that, Pat? I don't know.
Yep, this one says approval, so that's an action.
We need a motion to approve permits issued revenue account.
Yeah, your action is you're being asked to approve. The title includes that. So
Will somebody make that motion?
I'll move that we do that.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Other business, next meeting date.
You've got the discussion on the Glidden gas station.
that's
Oh, I'm
on-
sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
that's not on this.
Next meeting, Joe,
What's that?
next meeting date.
I can't quite hear you.
Next meeting date.
Next meeting date, Joe, when do you
Oh,
want?
next meeting date, okay. Let's take a look at our calendars here.
Sometime before deer season?
Okay.
We should have it before Rick goes to Florida for 7 months.
Yeah, we're getting into November here. Let's see.
Month from now, it'll be after elections.
Oh, let's see, the only, on Thursday, November 5th, I have Boyd Task Force meeting. I'd be double booked on that one. Otherwise, I'm pretty well open. That'd be, Thursday, November 5th. I'd be double booked.
Concord meetings on November 10th, second Tuesday.
November 10th, sounds like, okay, let's look at that. That's Tuesday, November 10th.
That's
That
coming.
one's good for me.
Board meeting.
So actually, we could bring a resolution for this on that if we meet on the 5th.
Well, he can't meet on the 5th, because that's a Thursday. We can meet on the 9th,
And what?
Monday, November 9th, we could meet.
But they already would have.
Yeah, that'd be Monday. I don't
Oh,
know.
you're right. So what about the 4th?
Well, that's up to Joe. I mean, the elections are on the 3rd.
Yeah, I could meet on the 4th on a Wednesday, but not on a Thursday.
Yeah, let's go for the 4th then. Is that okay with you?
All right, November 4th, next meeting.
Yeah, so you're gonna meet just to approve what we just discussed about this fee? That's the whole point of the meeting?
Well, I don't know. Do we just discuss that fee or do we have a full agenda for the meeting?
Yeah, I mean, if we don't have a full agenda, I'm reluctant just to spend the money to meet to approve a resolution about this or a fee. I mean, I'm fine with just taking it to the county board and saving the money instead of discussing it again. But that's up to you to decide as a committee and as a chairperson, if you want to spend the money to discuss this again. If you approved it on the 5th, normally we try to send those packets out. So the county board meets on the 10th on a Tuesday. Normally we try to send those packets out because of the mail and people wanting mail. We try to get those out early on Wednesday, the 4th, because otherwise people complain they don't get their packets. So for me, I'm shooting to have all of the writing done for the county board meeting on the 10th, done by Tuesday, the 3rd.
Clark,
If
this
we're
is
gonna
Pat.
meet, I think we should have a full agenda.
Yeah. Clark and George, I'm
That's my
fine.
opinion.
I'm fine with the administrator working with George and the county board chair to prepare an item for the full board for this item in the resolution. And I think if the members of the committee are supportive of this, or at least a majority are, we could speak up at that meeting and express why their support for it.
Dick, you're on the line. Would you weigh in and would you be supportive of that type of a direction? Dick?
Yes, I would.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, let's go with that, because otherwise you're really pushing us on the packet, trying to get this thing mailed out. And I'd hate to have to delay the packet for an important meeting, just for this one item. So we'll put something together and put it on the thing. Thank you, Dick.
And George,
So
are you
we'll
going
have a
to,
full agenda then on Wednesday, the 4th, is that correct?
No, we're gonna postpone the meeting then.
Well, we want one before deer season though, because of that's probably the last whack at, taking land and everything, because then you get into the winter months and we really don't, do that during the winter months, so I would like, if we're gonna skip a meeting, we skip, December and go to January, but I still think we should have a November meeting.
We're getting Jenny's input. This next meeting, she'll have more on there than I will, from a zoning standpoint. So whatever works for Jen. You want to do it?
I don't go anywhere, I just work, so I'm doing whatever. No, I don't do anything fun, I just work, so whatever.
is there anything that would be good to get done by the end of the year where this committee needs to weigh in? And I'm thinking in particular on the properties, and just as an observation, if the board takes a property prior to the end of the year, that property is not subject to the taxes for the following year. Taxes are based on who owns a property on the first of the year, if I'm not mistaken. And if we were to take them yet this year, then whoever owns them this year would not owe the taxes for next year because the county would then have the properties. If we didn't take the properties this year, then more taxes would accumulate. So there's pros and cons to that. And I don't know if staff has a recommendation which way, as far as setting a meeting date.
Well, we're probably not gonna have a sale now till April or May again, right? We're not gonna have one this fall, are we?
I don't think I'm gonna be able to get another one done by the end of the year. We can certainly have one in January or February if you wanted to. We have enough vacant properties that we could attempt to sell.
Yeah, we could have a land sale on everything but a house or something. If we don't have a house, we could still have another land sale this fall.
Yeah, I would prefer that we do have at least one more meeting before the end of the year because, a lot of the dates on the tax deed notice list, the dates that we can take these properties are, end of October. So I'd rather not delay that any longer, you know.
Well, set up a date.
Would we have enough for a land sale in November, December?
We have enough for land sale, I just don't know how to do get them together before the end of the year, but I would like to have another meeting so that we can potentially take some properties.
Well, this committee is kind of unique because we do handle 3 different departments. And that's why I always have like to, sometimes you get in here and it's an hour meeting, and sometimes it's a 2.5 hour meeting. It just depends on what's coming up. So I would still like one before deer season.
How about Monday, the 16th of November?
Yeah, that's all right. Any date's good enough for me.
Joe, Monday, the 16th?
Let's look at the 15th.
16th, Monday, the 16th of November.
Monday, the 16th. Let me look at it. Got my book here. Monday, the 16th would be all right with me.
Sounds good.
Is that okay with everyone else?
It is now.
Okay.
Yes.
Zoning committee, Monday, the 16th. And that'd be a full agenda, right? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna scratch out the 4th then.
So it's beyond any other business, John? Nothing. Good to go then.
Okay, is that date okay with everybody on the zoning committee then?
Yes.
Okay, we set that for Monday the 16th, zoning committee, 9 a.m. All right. Let's go on to land descriptions. Public comments for land description. Do we have anyone there for public comments? Any public comments? Any call-ins for public comments? I guess not. Well, let's go on then to item number 9, the Glidden gas station.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak a little bit about this situation?
I think John Weiner, is that you, John? John
We're going-
Weiner has. Who is this?
I've been working on this for a couple of years now, and
Yeah,
it was about a month ago. Bill Messenger and Clark came down to the site, saying that the DNR, Ashland County doesn't have to pay back the back taxes on it because the tax deed went to the original owner. And once Ashland County took it over, there's a question about not having to pay the back taxes on that. Well, that's not the only thing. And the only thing is, if that was the truth, Ashland County doesn't have to pay a dime for this building. And what happened was, since we were short on committee buildings, Bill Messenger and Clark and I met on this building to think maybe we could have made a building, a meeting building out of this place. Another thing is that on a tax title, when we had that, I had 2 people interested in it and they wanted to buy it, but there's too many questions behind that. And when we went inside of the building, the ceiling, everything was caved in and the roof is shot. So my thing is that when you put something on a tax title or tax deed, does the owner have the right to go in and take a look at these places so they can take a look at it too? They can probably be interested in buying it. So, George, do you know, like when you sell something, does the owner or the people that want to buy it get a chance to go in these buildings and look at these buildings before they put a price on them?
I mean,
Can anybody answer that question?
yeah,
Because I never received, never got a key for the building. This building's been a kind of a nightmare, and it would be nice to get this resolved.
so John, if you want to go in and look at the building, I have keys for it.
You do have a key, so when I had people interested in this, I didn't get the chance to have them take a look at the building, and so I'm really glad that I didn't sell it. But now, I would like to get that moved. And maybe I would like to ask Clark, since Clark was with us all the way through this system, and maybe he can help me put a little input into this.
Clark?
Yeah, so, we took a look at the building. So there's a couple issues that we have to deal with. One, the roof is collapsed in the center of the building. I sent down the highway department and forestry employee from each. They went up on the roof. They analyzed it. They're feeling, one of the things as a county asset, because physically it's our building, it's our property, and it's filled full of basic equipment. They just walked out the door. So refrigerators, shelving units, tables, chairs, cash registers, all the stuff. One of the things that we have to make sure we secure county assets. The question is, do we want to spend money to try to fix it? Which would be, I'd ask them to get involved with what would a new roof cost, because the whole roof pretty much needs to be replaced at this point. And we haven't got any estimates on that. if my preference, I would recommend that we try to sell it as soon as possible so that there's no further decompensation to the building itself. I have asked Jen to put together a package for moving all of our land sale auctions to Wisconsin Surplus. If you were to look at the Bayfield County site, they basically sell all of their properties on live auctions on the Wisconsin Surplus site. So we're going to be moving that direction, but I don't think we have yet done we haven't got that packet together yet for this committee to vote on yet, because we're going backwards to see how do we decide to do sealed auctions? Do we have to change a new ordinance? There's some background work that needs to be done with that. So Jen, would you be able to get that packet together by the 16th of November?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so my recommendation would be that we basically get this packet together for moving to online auctions, live auctions, approve it on the 16th, and then we can go live auction with this piece of property on the 17th. And we'll have all the pictures, we'll be set to go to pull the trigger on that. That way we could get rid of it if Jen wants to make that recommendation.
Yeah, and if you want, I can start on the report that I prepared on the property now and give you some background about the research you asked me to do on this property. So.
Well, go ahead, Jen, give your report on the property.
Okay, I'll try not to just read verbatim the report.
Can we speak up a little louder? I can't really hear
Yeah.
you.
So this past month, I spent a lot of time preparing this report and doing research on the Glenn gas station property. I just handed it out as Chippewa Quick Mart report. So just a little background on it. July of this year, we had taken the property on tax deed in the hopes that it could be sold at our land sale to put the property back on the tax roll. We were aware of all the contamination that was there before we foreclosed on it, and now we're looking at options to potentially investigate and do some remediation on the site. In addition to that, there's the DNR had come by the property in August of 2017. They had taken out the gas tanks from the property because the gas station was abandoned. And they placed a $18,000 lien on the property. As part of the tank removal process, soil samples were taken and tested for contamination. Some of the samples, one of the samples taken was found to have contamination. The contaminated sample was taken near and under the northwest corner of the gas pump canopy. At the very back of your packet here, and I apologize for not having this particular exhibit on the online portion, but on the last page of your packet that I passed out, it is highlighted as number S5. That's where they found the contamination to be. No further action was taken on the property after the initial testing was done. So where we are now, despite government exemption from responsibility to remediate, we're looking into the costs associated with remediation to close the DNR's Bureau for Remediation and Redevelopment tracking case. I did make contact with Christopher Sari from the DNR regarding the requirements for case closure. In his email from September 2nd, he said, in this particular case, it would first require an environmental consultant to conduct some limited additional investigation for soil and groundwater around the former tanks and pumps, and then completion of any necessary cleanup actions. Once that work is done, it will be summarized in a case closure package and presented to the DNR for review. Chris sent me, I had attached the email to the physical packet I passed around. And he gave me a copy of that case closure form, which was a very lengthy, nearly 20-page document. So I went ahead and contacted two companies to try to get quotes on what this might cost. One of them was MSA Professional Services, who conducted the initial investigation when the tanks were taken out. And I also consulted Short Elliott Henderson Inc. So from MSA, the gentleman that I talked to, he said it would be very difficult to put an estimate on something like this because it depends on a huge number of factors, such as the extent of the contamination and who or what it's affecting, whether it's affecting surrounding well water, that kind of thing. He did give me numbers, but he gave them as very, very broad estimates. He said that a site investigation could cost around $15,000, but it could be much more costly depending on how much testing is going to be involved to determine the full extent of contamination. And the cleanup for sites, which is done to state standard, can easily reach costs of $25,000 or more. And talking with the other environmentalist from Short, Elliott Henderson, he also reiterated the difficulty to estimate costs without knowing about future development plans and without actually just starting a site investigation. He mentioned the costs will also be related to how much information we want, how many tests with different depths, any groundwater testing. And he was not confident in giving me an estimation cost because it could range from just a few $1,000s to many, many thousands of dollars. So with all that said, there are a number of possible actions that the county could take. We could do the site investigation, but not clean it up and list it on the land sale for the amount of the back taxes plus the cost of the investigation. We could do the investigation and the cleanup and list the property on the land sale and add in the cost of the investigation and cleanup. We could do the site investigation and cleanup and list it on the land sale without adding the costs that we incurred for the investigation and cleanup. Or we could list the property on the next land sale as is, without doing any investigation or any cleanup. Or we could try to sell the property to the town of Jacobs if they wanted it. I summarized my thoughts here at the end. When I was talking to the people from these two different companies, they really had more questions for me than they could give answers. Really what I think it's going to boil down to is I think we're not going to know exactly how much this is going to cost us until we go in and have them do it. I personally don't feel like that's a good gamble for us to take. I don't think this property is worth all that. I think we should just list it on the land sale as is and try to get rid of it. Especially now with our plans moving forward to Wisconsin surplus, they have an enormous reach, a lot further than us just publishing it in the newspaper. So I think we would have a way better chance of selling it there. With how strained the budget is for the coming year, I personally don't feel like it's very wise to be spending the money on this property.
Could the highway department help clean it up somehow and have somebody look at it at the same time?
I'm not entirely sure that the highway department has the equipment for this kind of investigation. Even so, it would have to be certified by one of these companies.
Right.
You know.
I understand that, but couldn't they look at it? I'm just saying, it might work.
Yeah.
Have to look at it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I could ask NAFTA Highway if they have the equipment to collect samples and do testing.
Yeah, right.
So I know that was very lengthy and there was a lot of me talking, but are there any questions or any additional discussion?
Yeah, I would like to see this go on a tax title before Ashland County is thinking about trying to have a sale on the stuff that's in there, because what happens if the new owner wants to build something that they can use all the coolers and everything in there. You know, if you turn around and sell it and it's empty, and then somebody wanted to buy it to make another convenience store or make a meat place out of it, it would be bare. So my recommendation would be try to sell it as is, than trying to make a couple dollars off what's in there, because what's in there is going to cost a lot of money to take and get it out. So maybe I could get an input on Clark on that too.
This is Joe. I just got a comment on that. If the roof is shot, wouldn't the coolers and cash registers and everything inside the building be threatened if there was a leak in the roof or whatever?
When we went inside, that didn't look too bad because it leaked in the middle of the building, but the middle of the building is rough shape, yes.
Okay.
So my main question here is not so much related to what's inside the building as to what's outside the building in the ground. Because last meeting it was discussed at length about the contamination in the soil. So I prepared to give to you to decide on what the course of action is going to be relating to the contamination.
Yeah, so the action item that you're seeing in front of you today is, if we're gonna, the overall goal here is to bring this to the land sale on November 17th. If there's anything that needs to be done before November 17th, this committee would need to take an action to say, put money and invest money into doing something to the property, be that remediation, investigation, and you know, and then we could hopefully get that done before the land sale. So, you know, I guess, you know, from an administrative standpoint, I would follow the staff's recommendation on this action item to say, let's just sell it as is on November 17th without taking action between now and then regarding investigation, remediation, repairing the roof, or removing items to sell. And we basically, on the 16th of November, we would set a price that hopefully on the Wisconsin auction site, that would go statewide, and Midwest-wide actually, that hopefully somebody in the Midwest would be interested in buying that property as is, with a, you know, leaky roof and possible contamination. So that would be the staff recommendation, and we would seek a motion for that effect.
This is Pat. I'm looking at the agenda, and this agenda item is titled Report on Parcel ID, etc. And then the cover sheet has discussion. So I would be concerned about taking action on this based on the documents that we have in front of us, and whatever documents the board gets are also supposed to be available to the public. My preference on this is, the information has been helpful. My preference is that staff work with the chair of this committee and prepare an item for action entitled as such for the next meeting on November 16th with a recommendation there.
Right, and I didn't know that moving forward to this meeting, so I apologize for that. I realize we're kind of at a conundrum now, we can't really make.
And I would add, I think from discussion on this item, I think staff and the chair recognize this committee is interested in dealing with this issue and following a staff recommendation. So I think your time will, you know, be well spent on preparing that agenda item for next time. The other comment or question I have is with the tax lien, the DNR did some work there, put a lien on the property. And when the county takes a property, is the county subject to that lien? And then if the county sells it to a private party, what happens to that lien? Is it, how does that trail work?
So the liens attached to the property, and the county's not required to pay that lien off, and it would transfer to the new owner. If they wanted to remove the lien from the property, they would then be responsible to pay.
Okay, so it passes through the county onto the party that buys it.
Good luck on that.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, I just thank everybody that's working on this because I would love to get this building out of everybody's hair, and I do have people still interested in it, so we'll just have to bring it up to another time.
My comments, John, are such that, staff is always looking at, what does the committee or board want to do, and is it worth investing the time on something? And even though this one is titled as a report and discussion, I think it's clear to the administrator and staff that this committee is supportive of preparing whatever is necessary so that this item can be sold. So I think they know that for the next meeting that that would be time well invested. And we don't need a motion to let them know that.
Yeah, Pat, I guess the only thing that we're looking for from this committee is, do they want to spend money on an investigation on this, because that will determine how we list the piece of property on the 17th. Because it doesn't do us any good to meet on the 16th and then say we want to investigate putting an investigation into it and doing remediation.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
and if we're not interested in that, which is staff recommendation, because I don't think we want to spend money on it.
Sure,
Then we'll just list it as is. So that's what we're.
Yeah, as far as we could all say whether we support that or not without a motion. I don't support investing into this property. I would prefer we just sell it as is. So that's discussion, and that's fine. If others want to weigh in, they certainly could too.
Well, we never.
Well, this is Joe. And we've been discussing this for what, about the last 3 meetings now? And I think we should put it up for land sale November 17th as is. That's just my opinion on it.
We don't own it yet. We didn't take it.
We absolutely own it.
We
Yeah,
own that.
we own it, and we actually got 0 bids on the last land sale. Nobody,
So we actually took it?
we took it and nobody bid on it.
Yeah. So John, those guys weren't interested?
Again, Clark, I did have 2 people that would show up at this meeting today, said that they would buy it. But again, there were so many unanswered questions. They never got to look inside of the building, never got to look on outside of the building. They never looked at the roof. They never got any information on this sale. And the DNR never was answered the question. So there were so many questions that these 2 gentlemen have never got answers on. So that was the main reason.
That's fine, we have the answers.
This is Joe again. Will the building be open for inspection to prospective buyers?
What we've done in the past, Joe, is we've given somebody, either Jen can go down and open it, or we can give John a key and have him go in there and show it. As long as it's a committee member or a county board member. So if nobody had a chance to, I think that's what we need to do, is give him a key. He can go through there, they can check it all out, put it back up on sale again. If it don't go through, what's the tax on that? 5,000 a year, 7,000 a year?
Well, a prospective buyer has to know what they're getting. Has to know what they're getting. If you go and buy anything else, that's the way that it is.
At the time when we took the property, the tax.
Should be able to inspect it before bidding on it.
Geez, I'd sure hate to see that thing just go to pots and sit there and be a
Well,
county issue.
It wouldn't be if we can.
Oh yeah, it's already starting to fall apart.
Yeah.
I think we should give you a key.
I think we ought to put it on.
Yeah,
sale.
I like George's idea. You know what? I live in that township and I'm willing to take care of that building over 100%. So if I got a key and people could get my number, I would be more than glad to come down and show these people this building.
John, all you have to do is come to my office and ask me for a key.
Okay, so can I get a key today? I can get a key today then? All right.
Okay, so we're still looking to see if anybody in the committee wants to invest money on this thing before the next meeting. We've heard from Joe, we've heard from Pat. George, do you want to spend money on this thing or sell it?
Absolutely.
no, do you want to spend money on it?
Absolutely. We gotta see where we are with it.
So you want, you want to basically do a investigation and remediation.
Well,
Or sell it
I
as
would
is.
do that after we put it up for sale again, with John being able to go, or Jen going down and showing these people this. Because obviously that's the attitude right now, is that they never had a chance to look at it, they don't know about this, they don't know nothing, you know?
Yes.
And we always offer, an open, agenda on it, so I wouldn't spend any money until after the next land sale, providing we get these, two gentlemen to do that.
Good. Yeah, before the next land sale, we won't spend anything. John, you want to just sell it as is, right?
Yes.
Rick? Rick?
Yes,
You just want to sell it as is?
yes, if somebody would pay the money, that'd be great, but if they don't want to pay the money, then we have to think about remodeling it or doing something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we have a consensus from this committee that they don't want the staff to go out and spend money to do an investigation and remediation of the land issue. So we'll write the report up for the 16th and then get the new procedure for the Wisconsin public property surplus sale together. So we'll approve both those items at the next meeting. And then that way we can put it up for land sale. In addition, if Jen has any other properties that you want to sell, because at this point it would be the same thing.
Here's what I would, Jen, and I hate to do this to you, but if this doesn't sell at the next land sale and nobody bids on it, can we legally take and sell it to anybody?
Could you sell it back?
Because it's up for sale and everybody has a chance to bid on it, okay? And John has talked about this before of saying, hey, one guy wants to offer us this, can we sell it to him? And I've said, no, once we take it, it's gotta be open to anybody. But if we don't get a bid on it, could we possibly sell it to one or the other, being that nobody wants it?
Because I have talked to the township, but
I think it has to be at land sale.
It has to be through a land sale. The key decision that this committee will have to make on the 16th is what is your minimum price?
Right.
Is it $1? Is
What
it
did
$5,000?
we have it up for last time?
Last time we had it up for $30,000.
30? See, we could actually put it up for 15, so you take a little loss on it. I mean, we've done this many times where if you don't get a bid, you just keep bringing it down until somebody buys it, you know?
Yeah, I'm aware,
Right on.
I'm just asking, how much money do we want to sink into this and how much money are we willing to lose on it?
Well,
So
we could take a $3,500 hit on it if we're gonna have $7,000 in taxes the following year. I mean, you gotta be able to, in 3 years, you get $20,000 in taxes back. You've already made your $40,000 or $30,000, so.
So we'll bring this back and the committee can decide on the 16th
Well,
what the minimum price is.
here's the deal. You can put it out for $15,000, and if nobody takes it, you can jump it back up to 30 on the next land sale. You do not have to keep coming down. We can put any price tag we want on this stuff.
I agree with that, George. As long as this here stays in within a reasonable price for everybody to want to buy this place would be a big plus. And it would get rid of it that way. But if it's gonna be where it's gonna be 70, 80,000, well, then it's gonna be a little bit tougher then. Anyway.
I think we have a consensus for what we need to do, so we can move on.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is George. I need to be excused. I gotta go drive BART bus. And
Okay, George.
Yeah, you can come and ride free. Thank you.
See you, George.
Yep.
See you, George.
See you, George.
Goodbye, George.
So I guess I like Clark's idea. I guess this would be a price brought up on the next meeting then. And then we'd go to a land sale then, and that would be a pleasing, I think, everybody on my side anyway.
Sounds good.
Okay, are we ready to go on to the next item?
Yes, we are.
Okay. property-
Okay, do we go on to the next item? Property subject to tax deed?
All right, so, I updated our tax deed notice list, for the month. We've been, working on following up with people who have made payment plans that aren't, being consistent. We follow up with them, every month or two. You'll notice on the list here, I did add a couple of highlights here this morning on certain properties that we're getting close to the date that we can, take the property on a tax deed. So we're not at a lot of these dates yet, so that would be a discussion for next meeting. Whether or not we're on the board of taking those properties. What I can do beforehand though, for some of these highlighted ones, is I can send them a letter, kind of like a last chance letter, inviting them to come to our meeting on the 16th if they don't, if they can't make their final payments, or if they want to explain why they haven't been making payments. So are there any questions about the notice list?
This is Dick. I can't understand a word you're saying. I don't know what kind of connection you got, or if you're at the meeting or what, but it sounds like you're in a tunnel 3 miles away.
Yeah, sorry, Dick. We're just discussing our tax deed notices served list for, these are just people that have 3 years worth of delinquent taxes that we've contacted, giving them notice that we can take their property. There's a few on here that are highlighted that we can take towards the end of October. I don't have any action for this meeting today. But next meeting, we can take possible action against these properties, and I can write them letters to invite them to the committee meeting if they don't think they can make payments in time. Are there any questions about this list? I really don't want to go through each individual item, but I will if you want.
Jennifer, this is Pat. My question on the list is, does the information here provide the full costs that the county incurs for holding these properties? So for example, in the city of Ashland, are there any fees like the public fire protection fee that the county is paying that doesn't show up on this list in terms of costs that the county has for holding these properties? And is that similar with other cities or municipalities?
So for the city, so the county doesn't pay any like public water utilities or any special assessments on these properties. The only way that they would show up in these numbers here is if the city had placed them on the tax roll before we took the property. Otherwise, any other outstanding water bills or anything that the city didn't put on the tax roll are not shown in here.
So the city then is just eating those costs then?
Yeah, so for the time being. So generally we try to, when we sell the property, any proceeds that we make beyond what recoups the back taxes, we will send to the city for their special assessments that they incurred.
And if we don't get as much back as what is owed on taxes, does the county send the city money anyway, or is the city just out that money?
No, the city would then be out that money.
Okay, thank you.
I got one thing. And Pat came with I'd like to suggest on the last week's meeting there, where we spend so much money, so much time and money on a sale that's like $300 or something. I would like the idea of anything that's over a year, and if it's under $300 or something, I would like to see that go back to the townships. That way the township can clean that lot up. And if there's an old junk house on that place, the city will take and tear it down. So the townships would clean these places up if they was given some of these spots that are taken forever to sell or don't sell.
Sure. And I do send the land sale list out to every municipality that has property on the land sale. I very rarely hear from a municipality as far as their interest to purchase any of these properties.
Okay, thank you. Pat, would you have any input on that one when you brought up that idea last time?
Well, my experience on the city was that in most cases, the city didn't want the properties either. You know, these oddball properties, in most cases, the city didn't want them either. There'd have to be, the property would have to be such that somebody would want it. And if there's an old building, the city cleans up a few buildings, but there's far more that they don't have the money to clean up. Things like the ravines, et cetera, that aren't usable. People will often say, I don't want to pay taxes. And then there can be utilities that run through there. So if there's a power line through there, if there's a buried phone line, et cetera, sometimes you can't do a lot with those parcels because there's utilities that have right-of-ways. So sometimes they're just really hard to dispose of. But I do agree with the sentiment that both you expressed and George earlier, is that you have to be realistic about these properties and price them in such a way, which could include giving them away in some cases, to simply get them out of the county's hands. And so it doesn't take up staff time and resources to continue to try to get rid of them. And just because there's a pile of taxes piled up, it doesn't mean the property's worth that. It's like the Glidden station. You have to be realistic about what you can get. And if you can get it out of the county's hands, at least then you start generating some taxes again, and you reduce the staff time necessary and expenses related to it. So I'm supportive of, in general, whatever way the county can move on from these properties instead of holding on something that's turning into a liability, including giving them to townships if there's parcels they're interested in.
Thank you, Pat.
I'd say it's a good idea to bunch them up, especially in the city. You could bunch 4 or 5 of them together and see if they'd sell them. That's
See, the city might take them over.
right.
Okay.
Okay, any other business under land description?
I do. If you'll give me just a minute, I forgot in my office a letter that I got from one of the towns about a delinquent tax property.
Okay,
I can run and grab that really quick. I apologize.
all right.
In Bayfield County, there's a parcel the county owns that's a 1/4 mile from the land I own, and somebody outside the area bought it sight unseen, paid way too much, and now the taxes have piled up for a long time. And that property is listed for far more than it'll ever sell for. And so it's not generating any tax revenue. And I'm quite sure that people that live adjacent to it would pay market value and get it back on the tax roll, but they're not going to pay several times what the property is worth. And yet it keeps showing up for sale year after year. So in some ways it makes sense to work with the realtor and figure out what the market value is and, you know, be able to move on from some of these properties.
Okay. So in other business, I spoke to Stephen Walston, who I believe is the chairperson for the town of Marengo. He called me and he also wrote an email to me. We have a property, we haven't taken this property yet on tax deed, but the town of Marengo is very interested in this property. I believe they want to turn it into a park or like a rest stop area. So I asked him to write me an email letter to present to the committee. And it reads, Dear Jennifer, I am writing to you on behalf of the taxpayers of Marengo Township. We would like to acquire the property of Mary Anderson, 63424 County Highway C, Marengo, Wisconsin. Parcel number 016-00040-0300. We understand that Mary is deceased and the property taxes are overdue on the property. We understand that there are various fees and such, but we would like to clean it up and dispose of the falling down building and turn it into a resting type park for people that are passing by and need a place to sit and rest. Please consider the Township of Marengo acquiring this piece of property when it comes up for sale. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to call us. Yeah, so this, again, this is a property, we haven't taken it yet on tax deed. It'll be coming up, I'm pretty sure it's here.
Right here, I have it up, I think.
You have it? Okay. Yeah, so, yep, this Mary Anderson property. We won't be able to take it on tax deed until, November 25th. But when we do take it, basically the town of Marengo is asking us to consider selling the property to them. So, but that's all I have for other business.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Okay, are we through with other business now? Let's go on to land records, item number 12, GIS coordinator written report.
Hey everybody, this is Brittany. So the report for this month, my major projects was the FEMA Advanced Assistance Grant. We met with 4 towns, so we met with Marengo, White River, Ashland, and Morse. Those are the main towns in the Marengo watershed, and we just kind of got their opinions on you know, how they're managing their culverts, if they're doing any culvert inventories, if they would be willing to do a digital culvert inventory. We talked about their experience with FEMA, for better or worse, and just kind of got a lot of good information to kind of start this project's next phase. Our next meeting on this project is Monday, and then we'll kind of shift gears on that one. More towards an analysis of where we should look for shovel-ready projects to help these towns get funding for culvert replacements from FEMA in the future. This grant currently does not offer funding for the projects. However, it's kind of just to look at where they potentially could have projects for future funding sources. Moving on, I've been working on the server. Still having a little bit of issues with that, but we're finally getting some stuff moving on that. We've been doing the COVID exposure map, so working with the public nurse at the health department to map locations that have had positive patients or positive COVID patients at the location. And then we host that online for 28 days. So if you've been to any of those establishments, just watch your symptoms. And then kind of the bigger thing that I've been working on this last month is addressing. We've moved from having our emergency management director assign addresses to myself. So that has taken a lot of time for me to just kind of learn everything there is about addressing. I've assigned maybe 6 or 8 addresses now, and then we're working on 2 private roads. So working through some of that stuff. It's pretty familiar for me. Dorothy had spent a good year kind of training me on just the entire addressing system. So it's going pretty good. I think we could use some fees on private roads because currently we don't have a set fee. So I'll probably be working with everybody and coming up with that for our next meeting. Currently the addressing application fee is on the zoning fee schedule, so we'll probably just add that private road onto the zoning fee schedule. Then been working on our section corner remonumentation, just getting those in the GIS, and then just some other stuff. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Yeah, I have one on the department report on the snowmobile map, and now that Glidden and in a bunch of areas have opened up some new roads and stuff, is that all up to date on them?
So we have the trails were digitized last winter with our recreation officer, Bruce. We don't have the brand new information yet. So as soon as the trails get open, we'll have them go out and get that, and then we can update the maps right away. Being that it's online and it'll be free, the update will take, as long as it takes me to recreate the map and then upload it, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
This is Pat. I got a question on the sewers, the POWTS. Person could have a conventional system, a mound system, or holding tanks. And with your mapping system, do those properties with those kind of systems show up? And then if this is coming to the county board on the POWTS, is there any information regarding the maintenance costs on the county end based on the type of system? In other words, is Josh able to work with information you have or vice versa on those details and location? And would that be helpful to him?
Yeah, so I don't know if I misspoke or you misheard me, but I will not be bringing the...
No, you won't be, but what I'm thinking is, you got a lot of information available online, and I'm wondering if it includes the POWTS systems and maybe even the level of detail on the type of system that is there. Is that information in here?
Currently, we do not map any of that information. I had reached out to zoning to ask if they wanted to kind of dig into their zoning permit mapping, but just due with other projects, I have not had time, and it hasn't been pushed to the surface yet. So
do they have zoning or mapping that shows all of that detail, or does that fall under you?
That would be a question for Josh or Amy if they're
Okay.
still in the room.
Well, I guess for the one way or the other for a future meeting, I'd be curious to see where that shows up as far as maps with location and types of systems. And then if there's different levels of maintenance required with that, if that information somehow available too.
Pat, this is Josh. There are no maps, nor is there money to create maps. We have permit history. So we go up our permit history, and we also use Carmody Inc. for tracking systems as well. But again, there's no maps, there's no map layers, and we certainly don't have money in the budget to create those. Holding tanks are serviced when they're full, and septic tanks are required to be pumped every 3 years. So when the content for each level reaches a third, that's a state and federal requirement. Those are not county requirements. So.
Correct me, Josh, if I'm wrong. One of the things after we adopt this fee for the private septic systems holding tanks is we would develop this database that would inform the department if people basically are not pumping on time. So if every 3 years you're supposed to get your septic tank pumped out and you don't do it, we would like to be able to develop the tracking system and then have money to notify these people that they have to do that. Is that correct, Josh?
Well, we're currently using Carmody to track those right now. The money's going to go more towards the enforcement side of things. We don't have the staff to send out notices. Angel County is a full-time person that basically issues sanitary permits and sends out notices. In addition to the other office staff I have, so we are not required by law to send out pumping notices. It's everybody's required to keep track of their system. If we were in the Wisconsin Fund program, which the committee has elected numerous times to not be part of, that program would require us to send out notices. But since we're not part of it, we do not mail out notices.
But that would require more money to do that also. So that's more of a budgetary issue if we're going to develop a better budget or bigger budget. to protect groundwater and surface water from, failing systems.
Correct.
So Clark, this is Pat. I think the statement you just made is a very important statement or paragraph to write for an agenda bill for the county board when considering the item on the POWTS.
Yep, we'll have Josh put something together and put that together working with George.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the GIS report? All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. Other business, item 13.
I have no other business.
Okay, no other business. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Noes, abstentions, motion carried. We are adjourned.
So I gotta get mine home.
Please remember,